Welcome back to my Blast of Master Zero Destroyer Mode guide and walkthrough. This is yours truly, and I fucking love Area 3. This is otherwise known as the Industrial Area, and this is one of my favorite areas in the game. I love the music, the area is great, the dungeons are a little shitty, but make no mistake, this area will definitely test your skills in Destroyer Mode. There is a lot of enemies here. You have those bees that just love to shoot at you. The turrets, of course, make their return. You also have these circular Stridex pads, as you could call them, or as I used to call them, nuclear waffles from Super Mario Bros. 3. Greatest game ever. But the area should speak for itself. I should mention this area has a gimmick where you have to use your Sophia to unlock the way. There's two types of these. You have the green ones, which are permanent, and the yellow ones, which will go down their own. You can actually shoot them to delay their closure. And I really love that alarm sound. It's just very jingly. But anyway, I guess it's just some filler going on, and I make no mistake, I do die quite a bit, so expect some pretty choppy edits. And it's my AC goes down again. Fuck you. Oh, and there's also those dumpster enemies that look like they dump balls of steel. Those enemies can be real assholes, so make sure you take care of them. And also, as for these enemies, make sure you shoot the blue thing, because those are the ones that cause the enemies to spawn, the little circly Stridex pads, or is that how you call it, a nuclear waffle? They remind me of nuclear waffles, but they feel like popcorn enemies, so since there's so much of them, with the bullets going everywhere, they can be a real problem, so make sure you take care of them. But anyway, since there's some filler before the boss, I might as well talk about some things on why I just don't really like Destroyer Mode in this game. First of all, it's mainly the dungeons that really annoy me, is that a lot of the enemies are only weak to one specific gun type, and it becomes this trial and error bullshit on what gun works and what doesn't work, and because you have to either pause the game or push the weapon switch button manually. It only goes in one direction. There's no going left or right like in the classic shooter. It essentially just becomes you know, what will work and what doesn't work, and it just becomes very annoying. So I just usually stick to the regular gun half the time. And in this video, which I did mention back in part 1, there is a boss that I think you should just take the bullets and just try to fight it with the weakness, quote-unquote, because it will make the boss go by quicker. But the problem with this strategy is that if you want to guarantee the most success, you're going to have to stock up on your gun levels, and this dungeon where this boss resides is probably the hardest one I've done so far for this guide, because there's a lot of shit at you. The little enemies, I forget what they're called, they actually named them when you were playing Ashante, which is kind of cool. Which, by the way, why the fuck is every version of this game required to buy its DLC? Seriously, the only version that kind of does this a little leeway is the Steam version, obviously, because you have the two Inti Creates characters. Those are bundled in, they're for free, but you have to, of course, buy the third-party characters, which just annoy me. But yeah, I don't really mind the side view so much, even though the iframes are just ridiculous. But it's mainly the bosses and just this patience of seeing what works and what doesn't work is very annoying. And I actually really enjoy fighting the bosses in Destroyer Mode more in the tank compared to on foot, because really only one strategy is viable in Destroyer Mode, and just very annoying. And plus, it takes forever. I know the wave gun is overpowered, but that's kind of the whole point. But anyway, we got Central Gear. It's not guilty, though, and this boss fight can be interesting, but if you follow the strategies, you will beat it in no time. So, first of all, try to stay underground as much as possible. The platforms, you should only really use those if you need to get in a few hits. When this boss does some of his little gears, you have to watch out, because they will still shoot bullets at you when you destroy them, and when boss does this attack, again, try to stay underneath it so you can get your shots in. If you need to penetrate its shield, use the triple rockets and missiles. I forget what it's called, but your sub-weapon. Your standard sub-weapon. That will go through its shields and you can penetrate it. When this boss does the laser attack, go to the blind side of it. If it aims down and then goes up, go on the corner, you know, and its blind spot. When this boss does its little charge bullet shots, just again stay under it and just you know, do what you have to do. When the boss does the shots, the laser beam from its upward direction underneath it, you should be fine. You know, it's only use the platforms if you have to dodge the laser beam, because it's you're gonna get hit and you don't want to get hit by this boss. This boss does quite a bit of damage, and because you don't have anything that will let you shoot its shoot through its eye, you only really have the triple missile to work with, so it can be kind of a slow task. But this boss isn't really that much harder, though. I did die a couple times, I believe, as you can probably tell with the cut. And of course, when the boss does its laser attack from below, it can be very tricky to dodge if you're not fast enough. But you do get the hover ability to work with, which is great. It's actually really like the idea that you actually get to use the newly acquired ability and put it to the test against the boss. I really like that. That's really cool. I wish more games did that, but of course, this game being as brilliantly designed as it is, you don't really see a lot of stuff like that. At least not at this quality. But there's really not a lot I can say, really. This boss is really not that hard. It's probably one of the only other bosses besides maybe the skeleton boss that appears much later, which is actually much harder. Mainly because, well, I'll explain later when when we get to that one. You're gonna be for fucking treat if you use the best ability in the game. I swear to God, you're actually have to fight that thing. Unfortunately, let's just put it that way. But yeah, the gear is dead. It is now guilty forever. You can now smell the game in mutant hell. So the boss is dead, but we're actually going to go ahead and pay a little visit to another retro throwback boss, which I forgot to mention in the last part. The second boss of the main road, or the main path that you have to fight, is actually another throwback boss. This game actually uses a lot of throwback bosses, but this area is where I go to in order to get them, or I grind out my weapon upgrades, and you actually get 3 level ups here, but I messed this up. And the first time I was like, I try to optimize our route, but I'll speed that up, and I'll actually play some music over it because I was feeling cheeky. I try to find a song that would make it entertaining, because I like to make these guides, I really like to make videos as entertaining as possible, though sometimes they can kind of come off as being ranty and rambling a lot, and sometimes they'll be like long as fuck, but it's, I don't know, I enjoy this sort of thing, honestly, and I'm really hoping that so far these guides have been helpful. I know there's this person on Twitter who does comment a lot on my posts where I mention Blasphemous, so I really hope they're getting some mileage out of this, because I really love this game. I absolutely love this game. Well, I love both 0, 1, and 2 equally, but this game does have the better content, but 0, 2 is much more polished and feels original. This one feels like a nice reboot that takes as much sources as it can to appease everyone. Anyway, here comes the good stuff. So yeah, basically I show off my farming route. I do mess up a little bit, so that's why you see me retrying. So I love that just can get an idea of how you're supposed to do it. I want to go through those spikes because you do lose a weapon upgrade and that wastes time. So I do eventually nail down a pattern that just is crazy enough to work. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that bullshit again. So I think I go around, I think. You know, it's, I do get a very good, yeah, I messed up there again. Yeah, when I do these fast forward segments, I'm not really going to do a lot of. Maybe I'll throw in one more for good measure. But usually, oh yeah, by the way, make sure you use the penetrator to go through those, large blocks. They do blow up in one hit, so make sure you use that when you have to blow up a little, when you have a lot of, bigger, blocks. But anyway, so there's the weapon farming. And I also, I tried to find that, so there's actually a very big cut of footage I trimmed out, because I was just like, what the fuck? And also I did trim out going through this dungeon, but you're going to see the attempt I did do, because I actually went through this dungeon without the weapon upgrades. I tried finding a boss, but it didn't work out so well. So I said, fuck this, I'm upgrading my weapons. You're going to see the strats I'm going to use for this dungeon. And this dungeon is not very fun. So what I recommend is, first of all, do not get into fights you cannot handle. If you get hit more than twice, I would just say fuck it and restart. It is nice that the enemies don't shoot bullets at you when you defeat them in the dungeon mode, but because the bullets go through walls, it is a lot harder to avoid combat because they can just be real assholes. Even the simplest of enemies that just walk towards you and just shoot one bullet is somehow the most dangerous enemy. Speaking of dangerous, those little turrets that move side to side with the blue light, those are probably the most annoying enemies in the game because if they line up your sight with you, they will shoot a laser that is almost unavoidable, and it shoots extremely quickly. It's not so fast that it's as fast as light or anything, but it is just fast enough that avoiding it is almost like a game of chance. And I do believe I unfortunately take 2 hits, but I don't believe I go into this with full weapon upgrades, but it should be more than enough. As long as you have at least, like, I say 7 or 8, you should be able to take out this boss fine, which, again, is a throwback boss. But it actually does have an interesting name, and it's a Japanese version, which is interesting, which actually might be a reference to the year this game comes out. You'll see what I mean when it comes up. I'm not really sure if this boss was named like this originally, but if it is, but I'll be damned if it's actually based on, the original release date. Anyway, here's a really tricky part. You got these 2 things, you have to use your sub-weapon to destroy them, and because of the conveyor belts, they will get in your way, and I believe the sub-weapons also disappear too, so you have to collect them. Or at least I don't think this way. I know one of them power-ups did, I think. Which I think the power-ups dropped from enemies do disappear, but not the ones from the blocks, so keep that in mind when you're collecting stuff. As long as you get to the checkpoint, I really wouldn't worry about health. It's mainly more of weapon upgrades you need to worry about. And as you can see, I'm strafing like a boss, but... Okay, this boss, you want to use the first level 2 gun. It's the gun that goes full screen. Here you go, Z17. I'm guessing this stands for 0-2017. Blast Master 0, and of course the year the game came out. Anyway, you better have a fucking trigger finger for this fight, because the only way you're going to deal with this boss consistently is that if you shoot enough to the point where it explodes before it turns pink. If it turns pink, you're going to be in for a bad time, because this boss, when there's a lot of those photophages, I believe that's what this boss is called, this fight can get extremely tricky. Now, surprisingly, the weapon does go through them, so if you're able to hit multiple of them, you'll do a lot of damage, but this boss took me a lot of tries because I got really bad patterns. The boss's pattern is completely random. The arc of their spread shot is really awkward and is really hard to avoid, but just try to line up with it so you don't get hit. Use the sub-weapons if you need to, or if you're running low on weapon upgrades. You can use the regular gun on them, but it doesn't do enough damage to where they will explode before they start to do some damage, so you really need to have a trigger finger for this. You can use turbo if you're feeling like a bitch. I don't think you can use it in speedruns though, so if you're trying to speedrun this, which I don't know why the hell you want to speedrun this mode, but yeah, there's also the slowest crawl in the game, which also is a reference to the original game, which is interesting. But speaking of original, apparently you can do a sequence break where if you're playing as the EX character, you can actually get up here and you can get the boost, I think it's called. I'm actually gonna equip it right now. Actually, I actually really like it better than the hover, because even though it does waste a one whole bar of your energy, I actually get more consistent out of it, and it essentially acts as a jump. Now we're gonna go to the other dungeons, which the one I recommend going to last is actually the map, because there are dungeons that are dark and you need to use the flashbang in order to light them up. It's really dumb, but at least you'll need to do it once. But if you don't have that ability, this game will become extra ridiculously difficult. And you definitely do not want that, especially in Destroyer mode, where you can get your shit fucked in if you are not playing the game correctly. And I may not be a Blaster Master Zero Destroyer mode master of blasting, but I have played this game quite a bit enough, and I've dabbled with this. And getting off of my recent playthrough of it on PS4, I feel like I could try to make this into a guide. So here we go. So I'm like, what the fuck is this dungeon? It's like, oh, it's right here. So yeah, this is the other boss, and this is the raid room boss of the dungeon, and this one is actually much easier. And I'm going to be farming for weapon upgrades again, even though it's not really needed, but I'd like to be stocked up just in case. But we're going to once again do the carnival dance, in which, with the exception of the speed up times, you're not going to really see the now loading screen, because I'd want to try to get the footage snappy, even though I am playing off of an SD, but the game still is slow, but the load time's not really that bad. It's, the game doesn't really load that much. I mean, it's not as something, like, seamless as something like The Last of Us, where you can skip, like, a cutscene, it just takes you, like, right next to the gameplay. And, oh yeah, I'm actually testing the weaknesses really quick of the laser, and apparently it's weak to the reflex, but you're not gonna really need that for this raid boss or enemy boss. It's really simple. It's probably one of the easiest in the entire game, because if you're playing it correctly, which is not hard to do, you will never have to worry about getting hit. You just need to have a decent trigger finger. If you're playing this on normal mode, this fight isn't even a joke. Especially if you use the wave beam, which is just ridiculously overpowered. This thing is so fucking overpowered. But it's honestly kind of fun, considering that, especially if you use turbo mode, you're just essentially playing in an already easy mode. But one thing I do want to mention really quick is that do not take the top path when you go into the next room. Always take the bottom path. There is no reason to take the top path. It just wastes your time. Because you have to do a long-ass grind. Like, look at that shit. You're going to be fucking going forever. And it's not worth it, because the game's like, oh, you went the wrong way. So you do get some goodies out of it. But again, this boss fight's not that hard. You can use your gun. I'd even get it in one go, because it's that fucking simple. I do like the Japanese name better. In the American version or other versions, it's called Obliteration Laser. But in this one, it's Genocide Laser. And I love me some Genocide. Anyway, this boss is... honestly, you don't even need a strategy. Okay, the only thing I would recommend, though, is to, first of all, have a trigger finger so that you can blow up the things in time before they get to you, which I don't have the turbo controller, and again, I'm still using keyboard. I am mashing the fuck out of the fire button, but basically, you keep firing until the bottom one stops spawning. I don't quite know how many there are, but it doesn't really matter. This boss fight is not really that hard. I think the developers meant to like move around in the conveyor belt area, but it's really not that hard. But sneak your way through so that the lasers don't shoot you. And then once you destroy at least one of them, just line up wherever you feel comfortable. You don't really have to move if you're doing this correctly, but just keep firing, and you'll do it in no time. This is probably the most ridiculously easy fight in the entire game. Like, it takes no effort whatsoever. It's just fucking ridiculous. It's kind of pathetic, really. Now, if those boxes weren't there, this would actually be a little bit harder, but I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Anyway, that dungeon is done. We're now going to go into the final dungeon, which has the map, which is kind of useless, but I'm pretty sure you need it in order to beat the game and get the true ending. And plus, it's really not that hard to collect. Although, I am going to refer to the Switch version once I get around to Area 4. Which, by the way, I actually do have to cover Area 2 Revisited, because I didn't get all the items there, so expect a video on that momentarily once I get around to editing it, making sure that all the cuts are proper, because I really don't like to have a Sloppy Joe commentary video where I miss my cuts. I'm not used to making those kinds of videos, honestly. I really got my inspiration from the likes of SOPHIA from 17, Dick, Benedict, very awesome God creators. I think they know each other or something. I know their little circle of friends, like Hato, unfortunately passed away. Because when Suck from 17 did his, video, Dark Souls 3's new challenge run, he mentioned that. It was really sad. But anyway, this dungeon is dark, and for some reason, the Switch version is a little easier to see in, but I would just recommend just using the flashbang, and this dungeon is probably the hardest one, I think. Even though there's no boss, but because you cannot leave the dungeon after you get the item, you actually have to backtrack in order for your progress to count, so you're essentially doing double the work, which is really kind of annoying, and this one is probably the worst case of it. But there's the laser you have to take care of. I'd recommend shooting them, because enemies usually don't respawn, so you want to make sure you try to kill them all. Because if they're left alive, see, they got shot, there's nothing I can do. DSP moment. Ugh. But yeah, I should mention that I've gotten the inspiration for this also along with people like Aqualung Game Reviews, who has actually been making a lot of videos now recently. And he's even he's been around for like a really long time, ever since like shit, like what, 2009 or something. Like he's been around, like back when Big Al was making videos. Like damn, even Big Al mentioned him in a video. It's like hot damn, dude. That dude is fucking way more determination than I ever have. Big ups to him, seriously. Go watch his videos; they're fucking great. They may be a little bit stale though, because the videos aren't that much fancier compared to other people, but it is genuinely good stuff. And it's always nice to see people who stick to, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But anyway, the map is inside the breakable wall, and I would recommend going through the other side, which I'm going to do, even though the laser can get away. Again, it got shot. Got shot again, because the stupid invincibility frames really screwing you over, because you don't have a lot, unfortunately, and there's no purple slime to help you get normal iframes, so you're gonna have to really be careful. I think I shot through the wall, but thankfully this was in one take. I actually was very surprised I got this in one take, and I probably would have quit for the day if I said I died, because this dungeon is surprisingly long. Like I said, even though the monsters don't respawn, which is nice, it's like... This is another thing I want to bring up. This fucking song is terrible. It's like... I just realized today that the game has 3 different dungeon songs, and they play on depending on what bosses you've beaten. Like, if you defeat the Area 2 boss, this will start playing. And if you defeat the Area 6 boss, all the dungeons, including the ones you're in, will play the 3rd dungeon thing, which is actually kind of nice, but I really do not like this song. This one is extremely annoying. You hear way too much, and holy shit, that was so close. If I didn't get that health pickup, I would have died. Seriously, I would have died. I was like, I'm taking my time. I'm not gonna fuck up, but I do believe now I go back to that area again just to stock up on weapon upgrades, and I'm going to leave the area, so, there's really not much left to say, honestly, but I guess I'll talk about some of this stuff really quick. You're probably wondering why I didn't get all the items in Area 2, and that is because the, you have to get the hover ability anyway, and I'm upset, because you don't really get a lot of goodies in the story mode that really help you anyway. I said, fuck it, I'll just beat the main boss, get the second blaster upgrade, and then come back. You do have to backtrack anyway, so it might make for an interesting video, and plus I can talk about some more stuff while I show you how to get around, especially show off those sweet ass shortcuts. It's just fucking great. But there are definitely going to be some bosses that are extremely annoying in the story mode, and I cannot wait to talk about them. And it's just like I said, I love this game, and while I don't think the story mode is that well done in this game, honestly, I really do like that the Switch version got an update that adds this mode that gives people who want that extra challenge a replay value. Because let's be honest, I don't think Blaster Master Zero is really that much of a difficult game. I think Zero 2 might be a little harder, but the original, especially if you know how to use the Wave Beam, and of course, if you're playing Turbo Mode, you are going to get your ass kicked. There are probably some areas that might give you a hard time, or not realizing where to go might be a little bit of a hard time, but hey, at least those people who want more challenge in this game can, you know, you basically have a hard mode that's added into this game. Of course, you have to unlock it, so that's going to definitely piss off some jar of mayonnaise or something, but this mode is very much worth playing. It is definitely worth beating the game once or having someone do it for you so that you can get the intended Blaster Master Zero experience. I do wish that Zero 2 had it, but it is what it is. Maybe we'll get lucky and have a Zero 3 Destroy mode, and if not, I'll probably do a Challenger depending on how flexible the game is. But that's it for this part. Next one, we're going to go through Area 2 again and clean up what we didn't get the first time. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.